Hey guys, this is Tolly and welcome to Let's Build Some Cutscene Systems, Part 1. Here today, again, doing some JRPG stuff, but as a surprise guest appearance, we have Drixie.
Hey guys, it's been a long time.
It has been a while. So Drixie I've got set up with basically capturing her second monitor, so we're able to see, or capture her feed so we can see her doing drawing stuff, and we'll try some picture-in-picture stuff throughout the stream. But we'll switch back and forth. But primarily going to let Drixie just draw in the background. And we're going to be working towards doing some cutscene stuff. So last time we left off, let's see if this works. Did a little bit off camera so that the main menu stuff now shows up in the dungeon scene, but if I hit Y, we enter into the main menu. I've also hooked it up so that these buttons are now using Drixie's latest art. Some of this needs another pass because not all of it fits, and she mainly gave me one piece of art, but we're gonna have to try and like adapt some of it to obviously be different for like headers and stuff. But I got this art in, and like last time we were mostly just setting up some of these screens, getting the item screen up and working so that we could like damage our character and then heal. And then we had like a rudimentary equip screen that right now just shows items, but should be filtering to show items of the specific type of equipment that you're trying to equip. So that's kind of where we left off. I got it so now this stuff is actually like showing up in the core game, but the game is still running in the background, so as we're moving through this stuff, it's not pausing the character movement, so there's still more to be done there. The next thing I wanted to try and tackle, though, because there is a bunch more front end stuff that can be done, but I'd like to try and jump into doing some cutscene stuff. It's a bit tangential, but also slightly related. Kind of needed to do all the screen work in order to be able to do some of this like cutscene work, because essentially we want to be able to show dialogue, and I think I want that dialogue to show up in the same way that we essentially bring up screens. So I needed that stuff figured out in order to be able to figure out how the cutscenes were going to work. And I've been really wanting to get to cutscene like logic for honestly months now. This is something that I've been really wanting to dive into, and we're finally at a point where I feel like I can at least start on some rudimentary stuff. It does look like this particular version of the scene isn't fully baked. Right, okay. That's because we need to do a generate all-in-one so that we get our collision layers. Okay, now we got our collision. Cool. And we're also rendering correctly. Yeah, good. But yeah, so I have this small scene that's a bit separate from some of the other areas we've been in. For the most part, we've been primarily playing around in this much wider, bigger scene, but for the sake of testing some stuff out, I've made this cutscene one, and this is based off of the same like Google Sheets parsing stuff, with a few added additions. So for this one, we've added this idea of like essentially in our base version we have like floors, water, and ramps, and then anything that's not one of those things is basically walls. In the cutscene stuff, I've also added this idea that you can have a comma in between entries, and that comma indicates that this thing will have multiple features essentially. So it's both going to apply a floor, and it's also going to apply an E component with the name camera pan. And so that is essentially making a entity object when we generate the map, which has the ID of camera pan. So baking some of our kind of like almost waypoints that we're going to use for cutscene building into the map generation stuff, so that when we generate these maps, we're essentially generating spots where we're going to set up camera movements too. So that's mainly why we're in this separate little play space, is we're kind of just trying to have a simple area that's a lot more dumbed down, that we can kind of build up the kind of building blocks of a cutscene. The other one here we have a C: mimic intro, which is basically at this point identical in that it just sets up an entity object. But I think what I actually want this to be is like a trigger volume that when the character steps close to will trigger a cutscene moment. And the name of it, so in this case mimic intro, should be the cutscene that we want to try and trigger. So now we got to build that system. So step one is, how do we actually trigger an object? So we're in 2D space. So I kind of want to do some sort of 2D collider, which is something I haven't done a lot of. Let's generate all. And we can do basically some collision logic for when we get close, we trigger. The thing with that is, I think that we'll need 2 entities then, because right now we're only covering this spot. So even if we were to say add a sprite renderer, add a poly 2D collider, yes. And then we made this sprite like base floor. Let's add that collider again, but now it should map to the floor object. We could make it a trigger so it doesn't block the character. And we could turn off the sprite renderer. Yeah, so we'll only be able to cover 1. Looks like my system might also be generating 2 objects. But we'd only be able to generate 1 of these things. So do we want to have basically a trigger for every single one, or do we want to be able to define the size of a trigger volume? That might be the better system. Huh. I think what I would prefer is if we somehow could like dictate what the like spacing of this would be. But I think that's probably going to be too complicated. For today's stream, I think what we'll probably do is just set up a simple... These are not getting deleted correctly. Interesting. We'll probably just set up a simple distance check from this. Let's make a new script to do that distance check. And let's slam that in... Technically, this is like dungeon logic. I think I need to reorganize this folder structure slightly. And while I'm doing that, let's just open up Trixie's stream. Watch her draw a cat? Question mark?
I'm trying this blob theory, and I don't know if it works very well for me, because I just see... Well, cats are easy. I see them everywhere. And this whole part of this is like diving deep into your creativity, and the people that can do this are phenomenal. I don't know if this is my method, but it's the first time I'm trying it, especially for monsters, where I want to really get creative and not pull too hard inspiration from anywhere.
So you're just kind of creating a shape and seeing visually what you want to make out of it?
Literally just drew a blob. It kind of looks like a wizarding hat.
You can make that into an enemy.
Yeah, like, I kind of like that idea more than a cat. So far, anyway.
Okay.
So not much going on yet.
Okay. I'll come back to you later.
Okay.
Let's do... I'm going to slam this in town for now. So we're going to make a new script, which is the... honestly, I want to rewrite this at a later point when I have more time to think about it. But for the time being, getting things up and running, we're going to call it like temp trigger. And temp trigger is going to on update, honestly better yet, on start entity manager dot instance dot get component, get entity by ID. Let's get the player. Does the player have a entity on it yet? It does not. So we're going to add an entity, and we're going to call this entity player. And then we're going to grab player, and it'll grab it as an entity object, and then we'll do dot game object dot transform. And then we'll store the player's position as a transform object. Like so. So on start, we'll grab the player. And then on update, if the player transform minus this dot transform dot position this will give us a vector between the two of them, and then we can check the magnitude, and if the magnitude is less than 1, we'll debug.log something so that we can see whether or not we're getting close to this trigger point. Cutscene triggered. Okay. So let's add that temp trigger. This is a super rudimentary way of checking whether or not two objects are close to each other. It looks like it doesn't like it because there's a null reference issue. Equals null. If I'm going to guess there's a race condition happening where the entity system isn't fully initialized by the time this start is being called. So what we'll do to work around that, again, this is a kind of quick and dirty way of doing it. We're just going to make sure that if it equals null, then we're going to try and fetch it. Otherwise, if it doesn't equal null, then we're going to try and work with it. And we're going to get rid of this and that comment as well. Save that out, and that should work better now. Okay, rerun it. Ooh, was still getting a null reference at first. Possibly because Entity Manager wasn't ready yet? Okay. So here, if we collapse it, we can see the number of times that's going off is going up. So as we get close to this object, it goes off. Now, how close is 1? So how close do we have to get before it starts triggering? About there. Interesting. So then about 1.5 tiles away, depending on where the player's position actually is about there. Okay. So that might actually be about 2 tiles. 1 might be 2 tiles. It's probably fine. I think overall what we want to do is also do, again, a hacky fix, but we want to make sure we're checking for those null references. We don't want those firing off because they're annoying in the console because it looks like something bad is happening. So instead we're going to just do this, where if the instance equals null, then we just return. Cool. Did we lose chat? We did lose chat for a little bit there. Sorry, let's catch up on that. So we had Hardstyle over on the YouTube side saying hello. Hello to you.
Hello.
And then we had Torabisu random saying hello. Blob drawing kind of reminds me of the cloud gazing and seeing shapes, or the things with the seeing them with it, or things in them with their silhouettes.
And yeah, that's pretty much it. How cool can you make your clouds?
exactly. And
It's a
then
good way of looking at it.
Tempest says, "Yo, been ages. What's good? Told he. Things and stuff. Things and stuff. We're doing good. We're mostly just working on the JRPG. That's like the primary all the time thing. Okay.
It's been good times.
Okay, chat's up. Keep that going. Let's see. So we have now a point where we're grabbing the player, setting its transform, then minusing the transform from the current object's transform, and then if we're within a certain magnitude, i.e. this vector between these two objects is small enough, which means they're close enough, then we call trigger. So then the question is, what are we triggering? We don't really have a cutscene system per se right now, but we do have sequence objects. So when we actually enter into like the main menu section by hitting like Y, there's like this fade that happens on our like objects as they fade up and down. That's happening via our front end system where we have these sequence objects, which we built mostly. So let's take a look at like main menu open. We'll do a fade and it'll fade from, let's do opening, from 0 alpha to 1 over 0.5 seconds on the entity called main menu. And the entity called main menu under the front end sandbox is this menu component here. And then the background piece is the main menu background, which is handled by the opening and closing of the HUD. So when we go from the HUD scene to the main menu scene, we'll like mess with the background and turn it on. That's mostly because we don't want to be messing with the background when we're switching back and forth between main menu and like other scenes basically. So, but yeah, so we have the system for creating a series of steps that can happen. We want to use this exact same sequence system for cutscenes. So we have sequences underneath our front end folder. Maybe what we need is another folder specifically for, like, I made this front end one because there was just so much stuff that went into the front end and it made sense to like chunk it into its own folder. Maybe I want to do something similar here.
What do we think? Do you want two tentacles going at you, or I want kind of like sitting on the tentacle?
It looks way better once you got rid of like the actual blob in behind.
Yeah, of course. I'm thinking like chasing tentacles like that.
Sorry, maximizing so I can see it a little bit better.
Yeah.
I think I like the two.
Like that? Or they mentioned like sitting on it. And then I can make it look like it's crawling along the ground.
Hey, Bagel Bro.
Hey, Bagel Bro.
Where? I heard the bidding for it, but I didn't see it pop up in the... Huh. Oh, I see. I have this capture set up wrong. Got it. This needs to be lower in the OBS hierarchy. That's what it was. So the bidding for the 1 bit showed up at the showed up behind this screen capture. Fixed now. So you're trying to get one to like be in front of him almost with the tentacle there?
I was just trying to like perspectivize it, which looks better, having two tentacles out as if he's reaching for you, or if he's just like a slimy puddle coming towards you with like... I don't know if I'm liking this bottom one mostly.
Yeah, I don't like the bottom one. I'm on board with no bottom one. But...
No bottom one.
I like the eye a whole bunch though.
The eye is cool. I think this tentacle needs to be bigger. Oh, my color changed.
Oh, I need to move this one up. There we go. Okay, cool. Bagel Bro says, really like the hat.
He's going to eat ya.
He's going to be a monster that you'll fight.
Maybe
Magic
it'll be a mimic hat. Maybe it looks like his really cool legendary wizard hat, and you put it on your head, and you just get little gnaws. 'Cause his teeth are little.
So it doesn't eat you, it just like nom nom? Okay.
Maybe it could be like Hypnotoad style, or if you wear it and it like clench into you,
Or you just fight it.
or you just fight it.
Or you just fight
No
it.
plot device.
Just fight it.
Just fight.
Okay, so I'm gonna make a new folder. Let's minimize some of these other ones. Let's name this.
More dramatic. More tentacle. Oh, this thing's gonna be super big, Ash, if I keep that up. He's currently like boss size.
Yeah, remember that the space that you've dimensioned up there. What is it? The numbers. It's like up to the side, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, he looks more like a dragon head now.
Follow the silhouette. Follow it.
Yeah. So there's my sizes.
Yeah, so that 128 by 96 for this is for combat monsters, right? This isn't, yeah, because we don't have monsters on the dungeons. That is the maximum size that we can fit a character.
Yeah, so that's gonna be like the final boss will be the full box. So I just kind of got it carried away there with my box.
Yeah. I would also bring in like some of the existing monsters like Fire Chonks.
Fire Chonks.
And like Flame Rat as like reference for like how big they are in some of the space too, just to get your head around that. So
which one do we want? Do we want Fire Chonk? Or we want Lava Rat? Lava Rat was the smallest one.
Lava Rat was the smallest. Fire Chonk will give you a good idea of like a medium-sized character.
Let's go with the original. Let's go with the green Chonk. Hello, friend. He's the good boy.
Unlockable characters.
He's big. He's like, literally on that point.
Yeah, but he wasn't the whole thing though. Still.
And we'll just bring the mouse in here just for funsies, because he's right here.
Unlockable character says it's the hat that attacks with one of 4 moves: Griffin Bite, Huff and Puff Tornado, Raven Claw, or Sly Snake Bite.
I can dig that.
Okay. Let's do.
Alright, this guy has little puddles. Oh. Multiples.
Cutscene sequences. And then we should be able to just create a sequence. Yeah, we can just make one.
There he is. Here's my rat.
Intro. Mimic. Okay. And then let's name this.
Really
intro.
do love my rat.
Mimic. Okay, and that's. Okay, it's actually Mimic Intro is what I called all this stuff.
Oh.
Because, of course. Okay, so we have this sequence. We've made an addressable out of it. So then we should be able to grab that object and run it. So let's see. If we go to temp trigger, we need to do an addressable load. How do we do that elsewhere in the project? Addressable, load addressable? Shoot. Okay, let's just do it that way. I copied too much. So we want to load a sequence.
Well, let's just give him another eye. Like down here.
Yes, that is what our scriptable objects are. And then we want to load the mimic sequence. This is my first time technically doing it this way though. Up until now, all of my sequences have been loaded through like this screen transition system. So we'll see if this works. Okay, so we grab it. No, that's not how this works. This returns a task, which can we do on complete on?
How many eyes can a hat have?
Utils dot. That's what we're missing. And then can this have a on complete result. Wait. This is essentially just wrapping this. Is there somewhere else we use this with onComplete functions? Yes, here. This is what I want. Okay, so using the addressable system, we want to load the sequence scriptable via this name. Result. If result status is success. And I think we want to do result.result. That's not great. It's technically what it is. It's not super descriptive, but result, and then we can get the sequence out of it, and then we can do start. How do we play sequences? God, sequence. We're like 90% of the way there. Or not even, but I just need to find how we normally start a sequence. This thing has a screen transition manager. This is in charge of doing our sequence playing for our main stuff. This dot start sequence. And then this takes a series of sequence steps. Okay. We're just going to do it this way. So we're going to grab the sequence steps from our sequence, and we're just going to start a sequence this way. I think internally it's like building another one, but this is fine. Okay, so when we get close enough to the object, we're going to load the mimic intro, and we will kick off this sequence. We do need to make sure that we don't do this more than once, though, because otherwise we're going to be playing this like multiple times. So we need to have some sort of like check a bool is triggered, which starts false. And then we can honestly just be like, hey, if it's triggered or the instance is null, then we just leave. And then we can set it to triggered when we get into here. So this should only get hit once. Theory Infinity says, love seeing both of these scenes at once. Thank you. Honestly, I wasn't sure how this was going to go. So I'm glad that it seems to be working okay.
My art makes it amazing.
Well, you know, listen, I can be pretty dry when I'm just doing code stuff. So hopefully it adds a little bit of extra.
Oh, no pressure now.
No, well, listen, you got to carry me.
No, no wanna.
All right, so
Put my hat on you.
No. Are you essentially just defining the lines a little bit more now?
Yeah, so now I'm trying to figure out, I got all my rough sketch in, now I'm trying to define the lines of the character and really trying to make it grotesque. I kind of want it to look like it's just really either weathered down material that can't hold its shape to the point where it's almost bulbous.
Do you have pixel reference for something like that?
I do not, so I'm learning as we go, so please bear with me.
Okay, you're going to explore and just find stuff.
Yeah, plus it's going to have many eyes because I've kind of decided that's a cool thing.
Cool. I'm going to keep on this scene specifically because I think your art still shows fairly well in the bottom left, whereas my writing wouldn't show up at all. So we'll do this. I don't need this. I mean, I should log an error, I guess, but It doesn't need to be sprite. It can be failed to load. And then...
So this part just needs to come down. I don't like this.
That's unnecessary. I'll just say that. This whole thing's going to get reworked. Actually, that's a good point. Let's fix this one part. So this right now is just hard-coded to mimic entry. But we could instead do public string cutscene to trigger. And then this goes here. And then here, now we can say which one we fail to load. Now this has to get sets from somewhere. So this cutscene gets generated via our generate tile map stuff. So what we can do, I don't think this thing needs an entity, except that's how we clear and destroy the ones, or that's how we're supposed to be clearing and destroying everything, is by checking for things that have entity in it. Oh, that's why they're not getting destroyed, is because we added cutscene. Okay, well, we're fixing this bug while we're here. This is why we are not clearing our other objects. I think there has to be a better way to do this, though, but I don't think this thing needs an entity.
Why are you doing that, sir?
Because other things shouldn't be grabbing the cutscenes. I use the word entity all the way through here, but nothing's actually... That's just the variable names. Nothing here says that it has to be. So let's try removing this, because I don't think it needs it. And instead, let's do temp trigger. So we're going to make a temp trigger, and that temp trigger dot cutscene to trigger will equal this second piece of information, which should be in our system mimic intro, because it'll come in from our design data. And then this name just needs to be temp trigger and then what we're triggering. Cool. So now if we go back into Unity, which apparently needs to recompile, and then we clear, that should delete everything. Oh, failed on something. Oh, it's failing a bunch. Okay, clear, generate all in one. It created a temp trigger and has the mimic intro set. Fantastic. So now we can make any kind of cutscene trigger from here. So we could have another one over here. Oh, let's do it for the sake of fun. So if this system is working as I think it should, we should be able to do that, and then for the sake of simplicity, we'll do outro on the other side. Okay, and then if we do download TSV, save over the existing cutscene TSV that we have, then go back into Unity, and then do clear, generate all in one. We now have a mimic outro over here that will try and call something called mimic outro, which doesn't exist right now, which will cause other errors, but the core system of just making a, hey, here's a trigger spot seems to be good. So we triggered it one time. It only got one call. Now, did we kick off that sequence? I don't think we really have a way of telling if our sequences are running right now, which is kind of a problem. I guess for the time being, what we can do, just so that we know something happened, is we can set activity of an object. We're gonna, even though I just removed it, we're gonna add an entity back here just for the sake of testing, and then we're going to turn off the activity of that object. So if we run this now and we walk close enough to it, this gets turned off. It's deactivated. You can even see it grayed out here. So not a huge cutscene, but technically did a thing. there's more flashy things we could do, and we will do, but for the time being, that's at least showing that the system works. That when we got close to a temp trigger, it went and found the scriptable object of the right name, grabbed its sequence steps, and then started a sequence with those sequence steps. And right now, the only sequence step it had was to turn off the game object. Excuse me. Okay, cool. Neat, neat, neat. Speaking of neat,
Right? Are you looking at my art?
you're adding more eyes.
Right? How cool is it? I think 3 eyes is good eyes.
It's weird that it's like in the shadows of it. Like, I like it.
I also like it. Like, it's growing on me. I'm glad that the cat left.
Yeah, that's fair. It didn't go down the cat version.
I wasn't feeling it right away. I'm like, no. It's just...
I will say you'll need to flip him the other way, because the way our cutscene battle stuff works is enemies are on the left facing the heroes on the right.
I don't think that will be a problem. Let me
Just-
see if I knew. Oh, hotkey. What are you doing? Oh, because it flipped the entire zone. I just set up new hotkeys today, so I'm just kind of playing around. Here's my key. Boom, and then I should be able to flip it. There we go. So he'll look like that.
Yeah. That looks weird. Somehow flipping him changed the way he felt.
That is very true. Now there's too much emphasis on the rolls and not on his teeth. So that's a very good call, Tohi. I'm going to fix this up right away.
Okay, cool.
But I love this mouth right now, so I'm kind of disappointed. I'm just going to put this over here so I can keep it for a reference. This needs to change.
Okay, so I walk up to a thing, it triggers. Also, technically, I imagine that you would enter into here from this side too. Probably not this far back though. I need to figure out why that's doing that. Okay, so now I think next steps. Simplest thing, let's play with cameras, because everybody loves cameras.
Yay!
How do we do...
Sorry.
How do we have multiple virtual cameras? This one here is currently focused on the player. We could potentially change the follow target of this camera to instead be camera pan 1 via some code. Or we could instead set up another virtual camera, which I think is the value of the Cinemachine stuff that Unity comes with. This is a package that I'm using that honestly we worked with years ago, I think is when we first looked at some of the Cinemachine stuff, and that was when this thing was in 3D. So it's been a little while, but it's kind of a baked-in Unity thing, or not baked in, but it's a Unity provided asset. I don't know, whatever, it's free. So I need to have another camera. So how do I create a new camera in this system? Cinemachine, create. There's a bunch of options. Although honestly, I should probably look at this one for reference. Why am I not able to change the size? There we go. So this is a virtual camera, and we don't really see much about it at all. So if we look at the game view, okay, yeah, so this camera has a bit of a field around it. So the camera will only move if the character gets within this area, and even then it'll try and like follow. There's a bit of a flickering that happens right now where it's like updating slightly after the character's movement, I think. Yeah, that's a different problem for a different day. But I don't think I want these settings. I think I can duplicate this camera, and then I can change this one to point to camera pan. I can get rid of all of the dead zone stuff. And then can I get rid of the safety? Yeah, so it'll be hard snapping now, I think. And if we make this a 9, we're using this virtual camera. If we make this an 8, we're using this virtual camera. Okay, so by changing the priorities up and down on these, we can decide who's in charge. And basically what's happening behind the scenes is the Cinemachine brain is essentially doing an ease in, ease out, so it's blending between the two cameras. There's an Alex in Twitch chat. I want my game on Twitch's game list, but I don't know how to set it up. Can you help? Honestly, no. I haven't gotten that far with like ever creating a game solely on by myself. But I think the Twitch game list comes from the database. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. I'm not sure where that data comes from or how Twitch compiles that list. But it might be a submission thing. Google might be your friend on that one. Okay. So the question then is, do we just have another virtual camera in this scene, and that second virtual camera just points to camera pan 1? Because if that's the case, should we just be generating a camera when we generate the camera pan object? Maybe that's the point? So we have one virtual camera, and that virtual camera I think is honestly just a default that I set up. And this is probably should be called like should have a proper name, which can be like player vcam. Player virtual camera. Okay. The player vcam looks almost like player versus camera, which is weird. So we have the player virtual camera, which is set to look at the character. It has a priority 10. For the sake of simplicity, let's say that's a priority of 0. Then we have this camera over here, which essentially is associated with the camera object. Perhaps we want to generate this thing underneath the entity. There's basically, we have to decide where we want to generate this camera. We're gonna need another camera. I don't think the right call is just to simply swap the follow target, because this has a bunch of like dampening and stuff around like the character's movement, which we may not want those exact same settings for our character. So the question is, do we want to generate the cameras at pre-production stage? So when we're actually like generating our map, we create this object and we also create its camera, or do we want to instead handle it at runtime? And so at runtime, we could create the camera via a sequence step. We could have a sequence step that's like generate camera for given entity. I don't know what the cost of generating a camera is. My gut says that we probably want to do any camera creation and scene generation stuff at pre-production stage, not at runtime, because that's just going to save like processing time when the game's running. So we probably want to generate it here. But that means any data about that camera has to be written into this camera pan, like 2-line string essentially. Because now this is no longer generating just an entity object, it's now generating a whole camera and all of its associated settings. And every time we hit clear on this scene, we are also hitting clear on any settings we might manually set for that camera. So if we want anything custom for that camera that we're creating, it has to be done in our map setting stuff. And that seems bad. Because I don't want to put that much data into that object. So instead, maybe we need to have like a camera settings object that we can reference instead. So in the same way that we have like the sequence steps that handles all of this data for what a sequence is, we could have the same kind of idea for having an object that holds the settings for a specific type of camera. And then we just say, hey, we want to use settings 1 or settings 2 or whatever in the map stuff so that we don't have to put all those variables into our map data. Okay, I think that makes sense. So in the meantime, I'm gonna keep track of that, and I'm gonna do that at a later point. For the time being, let's just see what happens if we generate a default camera with just the default settings. So in here, we're creating a new object. We're gonna want to create a new one that is at what values? Looks like the main thing is that this is minus 10 in the Z, and the X and Y will be determined by its follow target, who it's following. So we should just be able to create new... No one's using this object. This doesn't need to be outed. Same thing for this one.
I scratched the ears for this model. Or the eyes, not the ears. This hat does not have ears. That's weird.
Interesting that flipping him changed so much of his perspective.
That's why it's super important to flip. Thank you for reminding me.
Well, it seems
eye
crazy.
Is not quite there either. I think it's a little too slanted now. I don't think I can just turn it like this. Oh, okay. Not the worst.
A-Sprite's real good at, like, rotating pixels.
What it's known for. Alright, let's just tidy this up a little bit.
Okay, so...
I don't like that much detail.
Okay, renamed all those variables. Now this one will be game object camera. And so this camera, we want to set its... Oh, right. Camera is a reserved keyword in Unity, so it needs to be like cutscene camera instead. So then we want to set this guy's transform dot position dot z is equal to -10. It looks like is what where we want our cameras to be. I can't do that. We can't directly set the z value because Unity doesn't like that. So instead we need to make a new vector, which is 0, 0, -10. It'll accept that. Okay, so we've created a new object. Now we need to add the component. Add component. What is the component of this camera? Is this a Cinemachine virtual camera? Is that it? Cinemachine virtual camera. Add component. Okay, and then we're gonna wanna, let's just add the using statement so we don't have to put Cinemachine dot in front of everything. And then we're going to set up this guy, lowercase the first value. Okay, and then this guy needs a follow. And its follow is a variable. Yes, is a transform. And the transform we want to set it to is the temp trigger. We're doing all this logic in the wrong spot. We don't want this on the cutscene trigger. We want this on the setup entity stuff. Which means this probably shouldn't be setup entity. This should be like setup camera based entity or something. Rename this to entity. Right, this should be lowercase for the first value because it's a local variable. That's the naming conventions I've chosen to go with. And this, okay. Shoot. That, and that, and like that, and like that. There we go. Transform. Cool. Now, Unity closed. Let's reopen Unity. I feel like his left arm could be like raised higher or something. I feel like there's a very flat line running along the edge of his body.
Yeah, I tried defining this with a little nubbin, but like he's splooted. I want him to look, he's becoming more and more gelatinous, and I like it.
Whoa! He looks very intense with a pupil.
Right?
Okay. I'll let you keep going. You have a vision.
Well, I appreciate the input on the left arm, because, like, I got a little chicken wing thing going over here. So, like, just, really, we could double chicken wing it, like that. I don't know. I think that takes away from, like, his cool teeth and eyes, though. What if he doesn't have any of that? What if he... No.
This camera is way bigger. Why is this camera so much bigger than the first one? Has to be something to do with its settings. I need to also give it a proper name when we generate it. Looks like the body needs to be set to frame transposer. Okay. What other settings seem to matter? Orthographic size 3. Ah, that's one of the more important ones, it looks like. And far clip plane, apparently I set to 1000 for some reason. And near 0.3. Okay. Don't know why I chose those particular settings, but I seem to have. And we chose a bunch of different things here too. But most of this is around the dead weight, the dead zone stuff. Okay. So the lens needs to be set to these values. So let's figure out if we can do that. So then this thing, let's set its transform.parent to equal this guy.transform. Let's set this thing's name to equal virtual camera oh, come on, there we go. Plus the entity ID. Let's add an underscore just to make it a little bit more readable. And then in here we need to do .lens. Orthographic size equals 3.
Alright, he's getting chunky.
Far clip plane we had set to 1000. And the near clip plane we had set at 0.3 float. All right. Cool. So that should fix the camera generation stuff a little bit. So clear, generate all in one. So this is an entity. It looks like its camera is over here, but if we hit run on it,
I think I'm gonna take our friends here.
okay, mildly confused. What camera are we looking through? Oh, there's this old one that we need to delete.
Oops.
Okay, so why is this not updating? Is it because it's underneath? We want it to follow this thing. Oh, its body needs to be set too. That was the other thing we did.
Alright, can I get a vote? What color should this glob be?
We can get a vote on that. Actually, can I do that in... I don't know if there's a way to add votes. Polls?
Mm-hmm.
1 second. Looking. I feel like polls are a thing that they added to Twitch at some point in the recent future. Manage polls. Cool. Manage a poll. Create a new poll. What's your question?
What color should Sir Slime be?
Is he a slime? Is he not a hat anymore?
He's kind of a hybrid slug hat.
Sir Slime. And then what options would you like to give?
Main color quadrants here is we got, I'm leaning towards like the oranges, orange browns.
Orange?
Yeah, we got some slime greens. Or some cool blues.
Those are the three you want?
Unless anybody else wants to chat it up in chat, like if someone wants to vote hot pink, we can just do a hot pink blob. I'm liking the way it's holding up in here though.
Okay. We've started a poll. I don't know if that's a good idea or a bad idea, but I've done it.
I mean, the worst that happens is no one says anything and then it gets pink.
Pink wasn't even an option.
Exactly. If no one votes, it's going pink. Ah.
No, we got slime green. Well, let's see now. Oh, we got a cool blue.
It's neck and neck so far.
Tie it all up so that we do nothing.
Oh, that would be hilarious. Well, then she goes all three colors.
Okay, so I need to set the body. That was the thing I was doing.
I do actually kind of want to bring this out a little further now that I look at
body. Ah, so slime green and cool blue. So I would like to see him be merged between slime green and cool blue.
Sweet.
Figure out how to make that happen.
Will do.
That was cool. I haven't used the poll stuff at all. Simply by the fact that my dashboard, I had to go find it, is an indicator of that. Where did... So this is called body frame transpose. So where is that in code? Because I am not seeing a body section. We might have to go to Google. Theory Infinity asks, so is he going to be both cool blue and slime green? Yes. You've made Drixie's job harder.
I've accepted this fate.
Update camera states? That doesn't look right. Transitions? Nope, that's not it. Okay, we're gonna have to look it up. So the question is, in Unity, Cinemachine, how do you, machine set body script. Oh, interesting. It's technically a separate component? Add Cinemachine component. Did it have to be based off of... Oh, it had to be based off of this guy. So this one here. Oh, I hit Control B when I went to hit Control V. It got very mad. Dot add Cinemachine component. Huh. This should be a Cinemachine virtual camera dot add. Oh, maybe because I need to add this. Does it need the type? Because I renamed this to cutscene camera. That's my problem. Okay, so track and dolly. So I don't want that. I want frame transpose, I guess. Yeah, I want this property. Body properties. Update to latest version. I missed some statements in chat. Maybe his main body is green with his tentacles tops transitioning to a cool blue.
Ooh, a little ombre action. I like that. Sorry, guys. I don't have access to chat on my PC. I can't see.
Yeah.
So, I'm relying on Tolhi, and as you can see, he's not doing a very good job.
And Toribus, you random. I might fall asleep and rewatch the VOD later. Have a great evening, everyone. You as well. Thanks for stopping in and saying hi. Okay, so Cinemachine virtual cameras. Is there anywhere where they mention this object? There isn't. So that must be a scripting specific thing. Frame transpose. Maybe we have to add Cinemachine frame. Yes. Okay, that's what it is. There we go. So we're going to add this component. That should be all we need to do now. So if we can get back to Unity. And we clear and generate all in one. It now has a frame transpose, so it's locked in. Okay. priority 0. That's the other thing we probably want to do here is let's say that our priority for new cameras we make is -1. So it's less priority than our main camera. Okay, cool, excellent, great. So now we have a system whereby we can generate a camera object. The settings are fixed and hard-coded in script. We're going to eventually want to be able to edit some of the body stuff, I'm imagining, depending on the situation. So this is going to need to be more flexible. But for the time being, we can say that's good enough. And the idea now is we want to be able to walk up to here, and then we want our sequence object oh, we regenerated this thing and it doesn't have the entity anymore, so when it tries to turn off the thing, it can't find it because it doesn't have the entity. That's fine. But when we get up to here and we call the trigger, what we essentially want to do is change this to be priority 1, which will cause this to happen essentially. Okay, let's make a sequence step for that. So our sequence system is super adaptable in that when we come into here and we click on this and hit add, these are all the different types of sequence steps that we currently have. Most of them are revolving around UI stuff essentially, but we're going to make some new sequence steps specific for our current stuff. So those are sequences. We want to find under scripts, sequence. These are our sequence steps. Let's copy a simple one, like set active. I think this one's one of my most simple things. It's basically when we invoke it, we essentially just loop through all the objects that are in the list for it and set their activity to whatever the active value is. So let's duplicate this guy. And then rename it to set vcam priority. Is that how you spell priority? Go. Visual Studio, stop opening.
No.
I'll open you when I'm ready.
No.
That looks close. Yeah, okay, cool. So we have this set vcam priority, and then in here we can have a boolean. No, we want a int value for the priority, and then we're going to get the objects. We're going to loop through all of our objects. We need to set up the constructors correctly for this thing with the new name.
Oops.
We're going to set it up so that you can call this from code if you're not doing it by hand. That's what these constructors are for. Make this priority. And then just setting that. Okay. And now here, when we grab all of our game objects, in other systems, when we do like, I guess this is one of the first ones actually, now that I think about it, where we're going to actually need to cast it, or not cast it, but we're going to need to do a try get component. And we're going to try and get a cinemachine virtual camera. Please add the using to the top. Good. And this will get out a cinemachine virtual camera. Okay, and this will be an if statement. So we will try and find that component. And if we find it, we don't need to do this, we will get out this virtual camera. And then when we get out that virtual camera, if it's found, then we can set the priority on that camera object. And the priority will be M priority. Okay, so we're gonna loop through all our objects. We're gonna try and find one with the camera. We're gonna try each of them to see if they have the camera, and if they do, we'll set its priority. Cool. Honestly, you shouldn't be calling this step on an entity that doesn't have a camera, so maybe we should be erroring to be like a little bit more safe, but that's fine. Technically, this thing doesn't have an entity ID on it yet, because this is technically the entity. I do wonder if we need this to be the entity anymore. For the sake of laziness, we're not going to remove it. I'll refactor later if I decide that I don't need that to have that script. For the time being, we'll just also add an entity to this thing. So Cinemachine, virtual camera, add an entity. This entity's ID will be equal to... We don't need to set its name. We need to set this on the object, not on the camera. That's what the problem is. The question is what the ID is for
Whoa. I didn't mean to do that, but he looks cool when he's dark.
Do you like him darker?
Not at this time. I can always do variants depending on where he is.
Where's the cool blue?
A lot of these are cool blue hues. And I have the ice blue ringing around his eyes currently. I don't like that so much. I feel like it should be like that. I'm working in more blues, don't worry.
Okay. I will warn, I'm starting to see...
Uh-huh.
a poo emoji.
Excellent.
Oh, no. I was afraid you were going to say that.
He is the coolest slime poop ever.
That might just be part of the camera, or part of the... My brain's just reading what I see now. That might just be part of the shading as it's incomplete.
He becomes a poop.
This
I
one-
mean, talk about a horror game if you're in a bathroom and that thing comes up at you. Terrifying. Just saying.
Okay, so... I think... definitely going to want to be able to set up entities the way I am. I think what I'm doing, though, is I'm doing two jobs in one right now. And I think what I actually want is a separate function here called setup camera. And I think setup camera doesn't create an object, it just sets up a camera. And it just uses... all this data, and it doesn't need a second version of all of it. No, for now we'll leave it. Okay, so what does this get modified to then? I'll just add camera to the front of it. Camera underscore. And then the main ID. Sure. I think that these can be two separate steps. I think that instead of having like an entity call and a camera call baked into this setup entity, because there will be times where we want to set up an entity without both also setting up a camera. I think it should actually be that our data can be like camera colon camera mimic 1 or something, and then this would set up both this thing and this thing. But then we have to run into the problem of like, how do we make this camera point at this entity object and follow it? Like, does that have to be passed in as like a secondary value? Do we do colon and then say camera pan 1? Like, it just, that seems gross. But I feel like I want to do something more like that than what we're currently doing, which is baking the entity creation and the camera into the same step. Because I do think I can see situations where we want to create an entity for like where to walk a character to, for example, which might be one of the next things we do. And we won't want to build a camera as part of setting up a spot to move a character to. Okay, so we've set up the system. If we hit clear, generate all in one, we have this virtual camera. It now has this entity component, which is camera underscore camera pan 1. If we go to this thing and we go, hey, we want to do a set v camera priority step and say we want to do this one, we want to set its priority to 1. Then we want to set a delay sequence. So we're going to delay for 2 seconds. And then we're going to add a set virtual camera priority. And we're going to set the original camera pan 1 back to -1 when we're done with it. So we're going to pan over, and then 2 seconds later we're going to walk back. We're going to go back. Sure. So we move up to here. A little fast, but fine. What if we move this square over 1? This, I think, is a bit silly in that, like, really it could have just moved the object in-game rather than re-download this, come into here, hit clear, generate all in one, and then have it move. I could have just moved it manually. So maybe there's just the whole idea of, like, having so much data in the map data is just me being overzealous and overexcited about the map stuff. Maybe we just set up our cutscene stuff in the scenes. There's just something nice about being able to write some of the cutscene stuff. Yeah, that was about a 5-second delay. Okay, cool. Writing some of the cutscene stuff. I just saw a problem. To finish the statement, though, it's nice to be able to write some of this like cutscene logic stuff in the map when I'm building the map instead of having to build it in the scene once the map is generated. So here's a problem. So we switch to the virtual camera that's pointing there, but when we switch back to this one, it returns back to its original position. Because we're not actually moving the camera. This camera always stays in this variation where it's just the characters on the edge. Instead, in this situation, we're switching to this other virtual camera over here. And when we do that, this virtual camera hasn't moved either. When what the move is the brain transitioning and blending between the two cameras. And part of me feels like when we transition back to the player, I'd actually like it to stop sooner. I'd like it to respect the dead zone almost. So when we move back over to here, I would prefer if the camera didn't move all the way back to its original position, but instead, if we picture it like the character was here on the edge, the camera should have stopped moving as soon as the yellow dot came into frame. So the camera shouldn't have moved back as much. Okay. Well, what if we add an entity to the player camera? We call this player camera, or maybe better yet, camera underscore player, so it matches the other one. And what if we made a new sequence step that did change the follow target? How would that look? Because I was trying to get away from this because I don't want to have to mess with the settings for this thing, but maybe that might be a better way. So let's duplicate this guy. Let's make a new step, and then let's change this to, sorry, which one is, one of them will have a 1 on the end. Yeah, it's this one. So set virtual camera follow sequence step. Copy that. Oh, I didn't copy apparently. Set virtual camera follow sequence step. Okay, open the constructors region, replace this one, this one, this one, and then instead this will be a string value, which will be entity to follow. That goes here, this goes here, this becomes lowercase e, change this to a string, place these values over here, copy, paste, paste. Okay, so constructors set up, let's minimize that thing. So we're basically saying, hey, this is the entity I'd like to follow. So we're going to still try and get the Cinemachine camera out, but now instead we're going to set our follow to entity manager.instance.get component. No, that's not what this is. This isn't a Unity thing. This is get entity by ID, and then we're going to give it the entity to follow ID, and then this should give us back a thing which we can call transform on. There is a chance that the entity is failed to find, so we can do this, I think, which is basically a null check with this question mark, so it'll attempt to do transform, but if it can't find it, then it'll just set follow to null, I think, is how that works. So we're going to try and find an entity by a name, and then we're going to try and set its transform to what we want to follow. Okay. So then if we come into here, instead of setting the priority and changing cameras, instead what we can do is set the follow, and we can set it, we want to, what are we doing? We're setting the player camera, we're setting the player camera to follow, and what do we want to follow? We want to follow camera pan 1. And then we want to afterwards set the follow back to the player. Does the player currently have an entity? Yes, it's player. We set that up earlier this stream. Okay. And then hit play on that. Does this look better? Oh, that's a hard no. Let's try moving this all the way over here. Oh, right. If we hit stop, it resets. So we need to move this over here, then hit play. I'm just curious what that snapping was, and if it's going to snap like that again. So if we move up to here, we get triggered. Okay. So what's happening is the follow target isn't panning to that object, it's snapping to it. I think that's because of the dead zone. If we get rid of the dead zone entirely, oh, that's the opposite. If we get rid of the dead zone entirely, set it to 2, is 1 the edge? Oh, 1 is the edge, because that's 9, 9, 5, 9, 9. Okay, so there, even if we set it to 2, oh, we can click unlimited soft zone. I think that's what we want. Yeah. Okay. So unlimited soft zone. Now, the dead zone in the red, just to try and explain for a second, is essentially going if the point I'm trying to follow is out like beyond that red zone, snap to that area essentially. Unlimited soft zone is saying, hey, get rid of that red zone entirely, and now always pan evenly to the location you're supposed to go to. So let's undo a little bit. Okay. If we just do that, I think the camera will work the way we want. No. Interesting. Okay. So maybe using the priorities is the right call. I don't think we want an aim. Don't think we want a composer. I just don't know why it's moving so fast. Oh, because we have dampening set off? Is that why? That's probably why. It has no dampening, so it's just... Yes, because now you see it's trailing behind. That's what it is. Okay. Okay, fine. So we click off in order to get rid of the blue. All right, so let's talk through it. It is working now that, as you can see, it comes back and stops here in this bottom right corner, so we're not going all the way back to the original spot. But problems. Dampening doesn't look super great on pixel games. When we do this dampening, you see how it like shudders a little bit as it catches up, because dampening essentially says it's going to try and like slowly try and reach the character. But on a pixel based game, when we have that slowly trying to reach, on those last few frames where it's just kind of just barely getting there, you see it almost like popping one pixel over at a time. There might be a way to like reduce that somewhat. I'm not super familiar with all of these variables. I don't think depth is going to matter for a 2D game. Target movement. This is why we had dampening off specifically, because we didn't want that edge, like, we want it to be like just hard attached to the character essentially. But in this situation where we want to use the dampening to kind of almost be an animation as the camera moves to a new follow target, we kind of want it on so that it returns back to this point. Okay, so I hate it. Long story short, I hate it. I don't think we want to have the follow target change, because we could technically update the dampening in as like another sequence step and change this camera's dampening so it's like 222, and then after 1 second set it to 0 so it like moves over but then stops. But it's going to be all very finicky in order to try and get that to work. So most accurately, I can probably do that. Yeah, okay, so we don't want to change the follow target. Changing the follow target is going to be a huge mess. We like the Cinemachine camera brain stuff of like, hey, change the priority, and then the camera system handles the panning and figuring out how long that should take, and it looks a lot more smooth when we do it that way, because that's the whole point of the system, is to handle transitioning between multiple cameras. And so we wanted to have that priority system. We want to use the first one we set up, and we want to change the priority on this camera to be 1, and then we want to change the priority on this camera back to -1. And then if we do want specific situations where when we come here we have the camera on like the left side of the character, and we want it to not go all the way back but instead stop over here on the right side of the character, what we can honestly do, it's not going to let me move the camera because it's following, but we can change the tracking offset to be like 3 -3 and then like 1.25. I hate it. Let's write a sequence step for it and see if it works. So let's grab the priority. Set virtual camera tracking offset. I'm gonna want to copy that one. Okay, and then we set that there, and then for the constructors, that, and that, and then this is going to be a vector 3, which will be tracking offset. Okay, then we're gonna paste that there, we're gonna paste that there, we're gonna vector 3 paste here and here, we're gonna grab this part, paste it there, change the T to lowercase, and then just paste that around a whole bunch. Now when we come down to here, instead of priority, we're gonna get Cinemachine component, and we're gonna try and find the Cinemachine frame transposer. Is there a try get? No. Okay, fine. So that's gonna grab the transposer. And because we don't have a try get, we have to check versus to make sure it's not null. But honestly, if we've set things up correctly, it should never be, but you never know. You could set it to the wrong entity ID, or the entity ID could not be found. And then we want to, on this part, have the offset value, tracking offset. And we want to set that tracking offset to this value, like so. And that should, quote unquote, just work. So in this situation, what we want to do then is, once we change we've set the priority of the new camera, we then want to change the tracking offset of our main camera. Oh, interesting. Our system doesn't handle vector 3s properly. Annoying. I'll have to figure out that at a later point. So then if we do this main camera, we can now come into here and say, hey, for that main camera, we want to set its offset to -3 and 1.25. And then for this one here. After the 5 seconds, this might not be long enough, but we'll try. Set it back to 0, 0. It's a little hard to read because of that bug with the data not showing correctly, but it's there. Okay, so let's see if that worked. This is a somewhat hacky solution, but realistically, this kind of works. So we're going to come up to here. We're going to transition over to here. We can click on the player camera so that we can see what it does. And hey, look, now it doesn't come back as far. Super lame. I hate it, but technically it's working. I want to just look at what happens with the tracking offsets. So this comes up to here. Goes all the way over to there. It's set to -3, -1.25. We come back, it gets set to 0. Okay. 0.8.
Ooh. What if he's a ceiling crawler?
I don't think we have any perspectives for our game where the monsters would ever be on the ceiling. Like, it wouldn't...
He looks absolutely terrifying upside down. He looks so happy here, but he is terrifying.
I like the dance. On the ground, I still think he looks a little pooey.
But on the ceiling, he looks like a scorpion of death.
Yeah.
Doesn't everybody have a turd in their game, though?
I mean, it's a little too on the nose for me personally. But what if you flip him upside down, though? That's interesting. Could you make a copy of him? Like copy him and move him off to one side normally, but then I'd be curious to see what would take him and flip him upside down and then try and make that work. What would the upside down version look like?
I was planning on trying different color variants, but I can definitely do this. Or I can do both. Oh, look, they're friends. Boop. Okay, this is fun here. Oh, not that.
Oh, you're gonna just try playing with his colors? Oh, now he's definitely poop. Oh.
That's cool.
Maybe it's just the green. I don't know.
I mean, yeah.
That's super cool.
I feel like his mouth needs work from this angle. Hey! Oh no.
It didn't save.
Nope. Everything is awful. Okay, well. Alpha, stop. No, alpha has to be perfect. Like his mouth needs to be bigger. Whoa there, buddy. Okay.
If you hadn't done the hue shifting on the character at the same time, would you have gotten the palette shifted as well?
I'd have to select the palette too, yeah.
Okay.
But handy thing on a sprite here that I can just do new palette from sprite, select my numbers, and then grab all the colors. Do you think his mouth is weird here?
No, but I'd still love to see an upside down variant. To see, like, because, like, I am curious to see, like, if we turn him upside down, how would you modify him, right? Like, would you take the, like, so not making it look like he's on the ceiling, but try and find a way to make him look like he's floating, maybe? Like,
I definitely see him having bat wings.
I could see that too if you wanted to add wings to him, and maybe try and make his like top part into like more of a scorpion tail almost. It's like almost there.
Mm-hmm.
But I almost feel like it should bend the other way if it was like a scorpion tail and he was like had bat wings and was flying.
Oh, I see.
Because he's like gonna swoop down and like sting at you.
Oh.
Yeah, you might have to redraw it. I'm not sure if it's a straight swap, but that was close though.
That's why I play.
That's why you play.
This is now my dissection page.
Oh god.
We're just gonna pretend that never happened. Huh.
Okay, so my stuff is mostly working. The problem I'm running into now is I don't like the... So when we get rid of all the dampening on the player camera and get it back to its default values, the offset stuff happens too quickly. And specifically the offset stuff is happening quickly because the Cinemachine camera is blending between the two cameras. But at the same time that we add the priority change, we're also right away doing the set offset. So the way we solve this is we add like a tiny delay in between of like, say, like 2-3 seconds. Then we reduce the time that we're at the other location. But this gets very weird and starts like getting super odd because now we have to start putting in random magic values of time for the transition. But technically it works. So the thing I think I want to do is I think I want to check whether or not we're currently blending. And a quick Google search has led me to the Cinemachine Brain camera class, and it has a active blend, which gets the current active blend in progress and returns null if none. So in the same way we have a delay step, because essentially all the delay step is doing is waiting until a certain amount of seconds has passed. I think we can wait until active blend is 0 essentially. So if we duplicate this guy, just move Visual Studio to one side so it stops reopening every time I modify the variable, and make this wait on Cinemachine cam blend. This is so wordy. Maybe it's just camera blend. That we know we're using Cinemachine, so it's vcam. Keep the naming similar. Wait on vcam blend sequence step. I don't even know if it really needs sequence step, to be honest. Okay, so then this is of that type. We have two constructors. What is the variable this thing takes? Also, I think this is an entity-based sequence step as well. Because I think this has to fetch a specific camera. Yeah, the brain is gonna need... an entity in our system. I think that's right. Yeah, we're gonna have to find... The other option is we just go find objects, game object dot find objects of type Cinemachine brain. Is that not the name of it? What is it called? No, it's a Cinemachine brain. Edit script. Well, the script is Cinemachine brain. Oh, because Cinemachine doesn't exist in this context. Cinemachine brain. There we go. Okay, now we'll just use at the top using Cinemachine. So essentially Unity has kind of this baked in like find object of type system, which is kind of the same as like our entity system, but it's a lot slower because it has to go through every single object in the game, whereas our system only has to wait or has to go through the things that we specifically set up. I think there's a new wait until, that's what I'm looking for. And then do I have any examples of a wait until already in the project? We do. So it looks like it's function call that's hidden behind the camera. It looks like it is just waiting until something is true. So I think it just has to be like equal and then Cinemachine dot active blend equals null. So we just wait until the blend is equal null, because we know that in the code it says that it returns null if there is no active blend. So this should, in theory, when we call this function, wait until this is true. This will find the one Cinemachine brain in the scene. Okay. This doesn't need seconds. So this just has one default constructor and has no serializable types. The only question is whether I want to be using my actual entity system, but let's just test this and see if this works first. So let's see. If we go into our system, we should have a new one, which is... This is also getting very long. Wait for V camera blend, which has no parameters, but it is a step that exists. And now if we remove our 3-second delay, the system should technically still work, quote unquote. So if we walk up to here, we shouldn't get any weird popping. We still get weird popping. Okay. So it's not actually waiting. Let's attach the debugger and see what actually happened. I'm gonna guess that the camera blend hadn't started yet, and we probably need to wait a frame. Are you not gonna show me this value? Add watch. It's not in scope apparently. Super cool. Oh, there it is. Popped into existence. Active blend is currently null. Active virtual camera is currently player virtual camera. Okay, cool. So what's happened here is that we've called the priority change, but we haven't given enough time for the Cinemachine brain camera to realize that something, that like the priorities have shifted. So we have to kind of delay for a frame. So when we set priority, set priority. When we set priority, we return null. When we look at how a sequence works, when we call invoke, oh, this is calling on the step. This is calling run. Something looks wrong here. This is just calling invoke. Am I in an old version of the project? What is happening? This code shouldn't look like this. Oh, I took off of... Oh, you started over with a fresh version of the sketch?
Yeah, but I'm thinking I can't... Ooh. I didn't want to copy you directly. I don't want to do like the one I wanted to keep the big mouth theory, but like... if I want... For some reason, it's just not looking as nice, because I wanted something more bitey than smiley, but it looks like it's just the entire face is now one giant mouth, which is maybe what I want, but I'm having a hard time kind of wrapping my head around it right now.
Okay.
Yeah. Rawr. I was thinking slanted eyes would be cool, but it might be too much because the mouth is already going to be the main focus.
Okay. Someone on the YouTube side says, I like the background music. Cool. Thank you. It's a piece that I got off of like the Unity Asset Store, honestly, when I started this project like 2 years ago. Just one of the like ones that I purchased, and I can It's been a nice calm one that is very unintrusive. It just kind of plays in the background, so it's not just pure silence as we're coding, or in today's stream's example, arting as well. I'm a little weirded out by this part. This, I remember being written differently. There should be something in here that does something different, and I'm not sure if, like, at some point I lost code, or...
How does one lose code?
It's complicated.
This middle thing isn't working for me, not if I want the tail.
I don't
Got
understand.
distracted with the vampire idea.
Don't understand. There should be something in here that, like, is check versing an enumerator, not just yielding return on all sequence steps. Oh, is this looking at the wrong sequence? Is that like a dead script somewhere that exists when it really shouldn't? Let's go like this. Go to entity, go to sequence step. Go to sequence. Yes. Okay, I was looking at some dead script that I need to clean out at some point. Okay, so the way this works is it tries to... If it's not blocking, it tries to start a coroutine. Otherwise, it evokes, and then if it has an enumerator that's not null, it yield returns on it. And the system is smart enough, and I don't really fully comprehend it, to be perfectly honest, but the system is smart enough that when this thing returns, if it was to return an enumerator, it doesn't call the function, it just calls this enumerator, and when we yield return, then calls the function. Whereas if we return null, it will figure out that it needs to call the code and will never call the code in here. I'm not going to get it too deep into it, but essentially it does magic. So when we set the priority on a camera, we're currently returning null. Can we send back a enumerator that does nothing? New... Wait for end of frame? Nope. I don't know how to write the syntax for that. How do we do it in delay? Delay has the thing. Yield return. Okay. Is that what we need to do here? Here we need to yield return for end of frame. New? Yes. Okay. Needed the yield keyword. So we are yield returning until the end of frame. So this thing will take one frame before continuing. That one frame difference hopefully should be enough for the Cinemachine camera to get its tick and be able to know that we are switching and blending, and now the wait for should operate correctly. Holy smokes. Okay. Cool. Excellent. Moving on. All right. So we come over to here. We are activating. Active blend is still null. Is blending is false. Interesting. Still on the player camera. Also, apparently there's an is blending, which I didn't see, which honestly we should probably just check that. Wait until is blending is false. Okay, so then what if we just add a wait for 0.1f So a tenth of a second. Is that enough of a delay for us to catch the camera blend? Yes, it is. Awesome. Okay. So if we put in that breakpoint again, and we hit run there, Twitch message. Great Olaf 5, I'm gonna guess. I'm sorry to say, but I kind of I'm gonna assume that's your correction. Kind of keep forgetting you're still around making things. I first started watching your stuff around the time of your Millennium Minecraft run ages ago. I need to go back and watch more of your programming stuff. To be fair, it's not for everyone. I feel like since I've stopped doing gaming stuff directly and mostly have been focusing on like the JRPG building stuff, that like we have lost a large number of people, and I hold no like ill intent on that. The content has definitely fundamentally changed, and in a lot of ways I have changed. I'm not that Minecraft Let's Player anymore, and the things that hold my attention now is not so much building things in Minecraft, but evolved to the point where it's, building a video game. That's the thing I'm interested in doing. And so that's a very different, it's a very different thing. And definitely doesn't always make for the most interesting viewing experience.
I was bored in the beginning, but then you taught me to understand it, which is nice. You're a good teacher.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, so yes, so this has basically this is time in blend is a tenth of a second. So, okay, so it doesn't take, it's not off by much. It literally is off by like a frame. So we need to like just wait 2 frames. What if this seems bad, but what if we wait for end of frame twice? What if we do that? But I will say, great, I appreciate you stopping in and leaving the comment. I do, every time anyone says anything, I do appreciate it. I enjoy the community aspect of it, which is the thing that I think I miss the most from some of the older, busier stuff. Even when it was not Twitch or streaming, but just YouTube, like reading the comments every day was a huge thing. So I appreciate the hello. Okay, so we're waiting until frame twice now. Maybe that's good enough. We just need to we like, that's the problem, is we're not in control of the Cinemachine camera. Unless we can be. How does this thing start blending? Can we tell it to check for update? Is there a force update call? These are all fields methods. No, it doesn't look like there's... Oh! Oh, this defines the update method. Like how it updates. In what way. But that isn't a force update. That's a shame. I thought for a second that might be what we were looking for. This has like an is live. Properties, active blend, default, output, solo camera. Yeah, there doesn't look to be a force update. Because that's really what I want to do. Is like after I set the priority, I don't love that I'm now in the hands of the entity system to decide when it wants to finish doing all of its update stuff. And that's the whole reason why we're trying to add this wait for virtual camera blend, because we don't want to be guessing at what things are happening. We want to kind of actually know that things are operating the way we think they are. Okay, blending is true. Okay, so if we wait for end of frame twice, it works. But waiting for end of frame once doesn't work. That's annoying. Let's validate one more time. If we just do one wait for end of frame, does it still fail? If it has to be 2 wait for end of frames, I'm gonna leave it. Like if there's a little, like at this point we are expecting that we're mid transition on the frames anyways. If the next step takes a frame or 2 to appear, I'm not gonna cry about it. Yeah, active blend is false. Okay. So when changing the priority of cameras, we need to wait 2 frames because it's going to take 2 frames before the Cinemachine camera system figures out that we've changed the priority, and it's going to update, and then we can have this type of wait for the blend to finish. And then once the blend is finished, then we can update our tracking offset so that it like moves the camera, and then we can set the tracking offset back to 0, 0 after we're done. And this 2-second delay here is literally just a 2-second delay for like pausing. This is a hard set, and at the end we set the priority back to -1 and it transitions out. Okay, so walking back up, that still felt poppy to me. Even though technically this should be waiting, that still felt like it snapped a little bit. Theoretically, if we put... Oh, I didn't add back the double frame. That's why. Duh. Great Olaf 5 in Twitch chat again. Yeah, I'm always in favor of creators doing things that interest them. I'm never begrudge someone for their passions changing. Keep working on the things that make you happy. Anyways, I just thought I'd drop in for a bit. It's past midnight here. Need some sleep. Have a good night. You as well.
Thanks for stopping by.
Appreciate. How's the drawing, Drixie?
My scorpion's turned into more of a dragon.
Yeah? Oh, I see it. It's hard to see like with the multi-overlapping colors, but
it's got a 3-prong skewer.
I missed my animation.
Um,
That's cool though.
Let me get rid of Mr. Blob here. And he's kind of taking on this world.
Neat. So you're just following the silhouettes of the silhouettes of the silhouettes.
Yeah, like just blob on blob on blob, cloud on cloud. How many clouds does it take to get a dragon?
How many clouds?
Apparently 6.
Okay. That camera pan is now working as intended. I'll show it one more time, but yeah, this system is working.
Don't want to do that.
It's a little finicky that I have to have all of these steps. But it is what it is. I want to do something very specific. And when you want to do very specific things, sometimes you have to write very specific steps. Can I fix this tracking offset thing very quickly? I don't want to go down the rabbit hole with this, but it is very annoying. So sequence, scriptable. This thing has a editor, which is this guy. This thing on draw elements is figuring out what to draw, looking at a bunch of variable types. On draw height, basically checking to see if it's an array. If it's an array, there's special stuff for if it's an array. Otherwise, we treat it as normal. So I think we need to check if the property is... It's not if it's an array. Is there like a type value we can check? We can technically get type. And in this case, I think we're checking for vector 3. And then we need to write type of. And so if the iterator's type is type of vector 3, I think we add the height twice. That didn't work. Oh. Thank you for the follow, Lifted DC5.
Thanks, Lifted DC5.
Also over on the YouTube side, Julian suggests the name Scorpilizard.
I can...
Scorpilizard.
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 Sounds pretty rad.
Okay, so then...
I think the hardest part right now is, for a Scorpilizard, I don't want to do typical dragon wings. So I actually have like butterflies pulled up on the other screen here, and I'm trying to pull inspiration from butterflies.
Nice.
Right? It's really interesting. Because dragons have their own place in this world.
Oh. Okay. So type of vector 3 didn't seem to work at all. I think that's because I need to be doing the... I was typing the iterative proper... the iterative prop, but I need to be checking the values of the prop instead. Yeah, because this get type is like a global get type. That's going to get me the type of this variable, which is a serialized object field thing. We want to find out what the type that this thing represents is. We have int value, serialized object, array element, count, copy. I don't know how to do this one easily. Float value. Has visible children. Does that do it? It does. That feels a little hacky to me. If we add a bunch of these... Yeah, it doesn't break this thing. This thing has multiple visible children as well. Okay, cool. Hey, Kazukish, welcome to the stream.
Kazukish, welcome.
So what do? We say if a property has visible children, add its height twice. Double the height. I don't love it, but honestly, for right now, it looks better than stuff overlapping. So we're going to leave it like that. Cool. Quick hack fix. Just so that the stream, I don't have to keep like moving these things up and down to see what the values are. Okay, so we have the tracking offset set properly now. Oh, the other thing I could have done is just move it out. Well... just because it was compressed also. Well, whatever. I'm leaving it. Alright, so... because honestly, I like it like that a little bit more. Lifted DC, what's up? Good to see you streaming. Longtime subscriber over your YouTube. I found your Let's Plays of Bully when I was in middle school, so long ago. Bully was a very long time ago. Bully was a very long time ago. But lots of riding bikes around. And panda suits? I don't know. I don't remember, honestly, a lot of the Bully series. A lot of failing geography class. I still have nightmares. Okay, cool. So that's working. Doesn't replay. Good. Honestly, this took a lot longer than I thought it was going to, but camera panning stuff can be complicated. So we got it working the way I want it to. Even some of the weird miscellaneous garbage things by having to set these like tracking things. We even got like this thing that allows us to tell whether or not we're waiting or to wait until a blend is finished. So that's all very good and extra. Now the next step is what do we want next in our cutscene? At this point the cutscene is simply moving the camera. I think the next big thing I'd like to do is disable the character movement. So how does the character movement work? This is still using this isometric player movement controller, which is kind of comes from the Unity base system. Yeah, okay, cool. Lifted DC5 says it was a good time. Lol, glad to see you're still making content. Brings me some nostalgia. Content has definitely slowed in the number of years. As my professional career as a programmer gets more and more intense, there is less time for YouTube. And honestly, Drixie takes up a fair amount of my time as well.
Not sorry.
Not sorry. But what I do spend time on now is mostly on this like JRPG project. That's been most of the last year, I think, in content, and it's usually about a month apart. There can be a couple month downtime too, but I've been trying to do every 2 weeks or so the last little bit here, and we've been doing okay on that, but getting better. Also trying to fit Drixie into the streaming stuff as well, so that then we get more.
I was getting jealous.
Well, you say that, but you're right. You like joining on the streams, but I tend to focus more on streams where I'm solo stuff. But this is, since we, like, the big thing here is that I had to have a capture card in order to do this particular stream, and we managed to, for the time being, borrow an Elgato from a friend, and if this works out, then we might get one for ourselves. But yeah, this required specific hardware in order to pull off. Yeah, some of it's real life. And honestly, the other thing is just I've really enjoyed working on this particular project also. I find streaming and working through problems on stream makes me have to like mentally talk through all of the code that I'm writing, and a lot of that just allows me to focus and get way more done. So sometimes streaming the game content or the game creation is more so I focus than anything. So in here we're grabbing the horizontal input, we turn that into an input vector, place that into the movement, and then we place a movement. Okay, so essentially this thing controls all of the movement in this fixed update. So what happens if we just toggle off this script? If this script isn't active anymore, I would expect the character not to move. And he doesn't move. All right, cool, simple, easy. So then we can make a new sequence step for our cutscene system. We're gonna do a copy of, what do we want to copy? This is gonna be a specialized set active, I think. So this is gonna be, ooh, how specific do I want to get with this?
At least a 7.
At least a 7. No, we're gonna keep it simple for now. But I think that there's a way to make this generic. So okay, set sequence step. We're gonna set the player movement enabled. No, set player movement. Toggle player movement.
He looks soft and pillowy with like
set player
butterfly
control.
wings.
Let's go with set player control. Visual Studio, get it on my way. Okay, so set player control. Okay, Visual Studio, come back. This thing here is going to have an active value. All of this is going to be exactly the same. The only difference is going to be that instead of doing this, we're going to do GameObject.try get component, and we're going to get the player isometric player movement controller. Is that what we were just in? That doesn't oh, that is it. Okay, we're going to get this object. We're going to call it that. If we get that component, then use the component we got out and we are going to set isometric player controllers enabled to active. So now with this new sequence step, we can toggle the player's movements, which honestly is going to be useful for other stuff as well, because we're going to want to be able to turn off the player when we go into main menus and stuff. So does this work off of delta time? Yes, time.fix delta time. There's another way I can do this later, but for now this will work. So we're gonna do the where do we do player set? Yeah, we have to set the sequence. So inside of the, where did my sequence stuff go? Here. Inside of here, we can do immediately on start. We can set player control, and we can set player control on player. Technically, this thing should just find the player object. Like, it should just be able to find this, whatever. We're going to find player that we expect to be attached to this thing. We're going to set it off, and then we're going to set player control to active afterwards. What do you got?
Just put you know.
I got a drink. Cool. We'll set it back to on afterwards. Cool, cool, cool. So now that script should get disabled when we walk up here, and we shouldn't be able to move anymore. And then we can't move, we can't move, we can't move, we can't move, we can't move. I'm spamming all the buttons. Oh, and we can move again. Oh, I see why. Because we need to add a wait for blend to finish. Cool. Okay, so now we should be able to spam. Okay, and we don't get our movement back until the blend finishes. So yeah, this is just allowing us to say, hey, wait until the camera's finished blending between, and then we turn it back on. Cool, this is already working out. This thing is going to be super helpful, I think, this blend step. Cool. Cool, 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 cool. I'm super happy with that. I'm wondering if I can bake this into the same step. Like the set priority might be able to just encompass this wait and then have like a bool operator for whether or not we want it to be blocking. Because we already have this concept of like blocking operations. So like when we do a fade, we can toggle whether it's a blocking fade or not. Wonder might be a way to just wrap that so that we don't have to have a completely different step for it. Because it's kind of all encompassing the same idea. It has blocking. Why does that not show up? If we go to fade, sequence step. Because you have to do field serializable. Interesting. Technically blocking means things though. To reuse blocking might be tricky because it also means whether or not we try and start a coroutine on it or not. Huh, okay. That is not a big deal. I think there's a way to combine wait for blend and priority into one step with a bool for whether or not it should wait, but I'll do that at a later point and I'll think about it more. Okay, cool. Next up, we've got character stopped moving, so we are able to say, hey, when this is happening, you can't move. I think the next step is to move the player without the player being in control. i.e., in a cutscene, sometimes we might take control of the player and have, say, the player walk up to like here or something and then have dialogue appear. So how do we control the player's movement? Well, we already do this type of logic somewhere else. So if we go to scenes, nope, not that scenes. This scenes? Oh God, where are we? Here, scenes. And we go to, let's save our cutscene trial. Let's go to sewer. We run on this guy. Entering play mode. Applications, thinking. Come on, Unity, I believe in you.
Give him a mustache.
Can you flip him or like so that he's facing the other way? He's also huge.
Yeah, he's more of a boss dragon.
Okay. I don't think that flip works.
I don't know why I always tend to draw with my monsters facing the wrong way.
I think you might need to shift his head a little bit, because if you flip him back, whoa, that's not. Here, it looks like if you had the hero on the right-hand side, he'd be facing away from the hero, but maybe not. Maybe his eye is, like, looking at them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just a thought. Just a thought. Is, again, thinking about player and
Almost
setup.
like he has his wings and he's pushing away, but recoiling for the next strike.
Okay, I'll let you run it through.
Yeah, he's still in the very, very rough phases.
For sure. I'm
I
just
just
giving
feel like
some...
I needed to give our new little friend over here a bit of an eye break. You come back to your character later on and you feel different things about them. I don't know if I feel like I need to fix that a little bit.
I wasn't trying to derail you from the dragon, though.
No, it's good. You can see my improvement from shading though over the course of the last 6 months here with this monster versus where's my old goo ball? This old friend.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. I definitely think that, like, your progression over the past year from starting from scratch, it definitely, there has been drastic improvements, so.
I mean, he's still pretty cool. I worked very hard on him. He's very, very saturated, though. I think just changing his color a bit will help.
Back to dragon. Back to dragon. Okay. Anyway, so I have this enemy over here, and this enemy follows a series of waypoint positions that he tries to path on, and that system is using a nav mesh agent, and that nav mesh agent tries to set a destination. Okay, so we have AI movement, and we have an update. What if we just added this AI movement to
Make it look like you're looking at
the character? This thing actually does two jobs though right now. This thing was a kind of a... I've never finished this thing. I just kind of threw this together very quickly, but it's technically also doing the zone transition. So if you get within a certain distance of the agent, it also triggers a transition into the combat scene. That really shouldn't be embedded in the movement logic. That should be like a different script entirely, because now I want to reuse this movement, but this stuff is going to prevent me from doing that, I think. Okay, annoying. For now, let's just think about this. If we just add this to the player, but we disable this object, then it will... Not call update? Interesting. Okay. I don't think I'm going to copy this. This was under like this isometric section. Let's just slam another one in here. So we're going to create a new one, which is going to be player cutscene movement. Actually, you know what? It doesn't even need to be player. It's just cutscene movement, because this is going to be specifically for moving things during cutscenes. That might be the player, but this could also be anything else. So if we have this cutscene movement, let's look at our super rudimentary AI movement. The primary things here it needs is a nav agent, because that is how we move things. And then it needs this startup logic. This requires us to use the AI system. This set next location is using some path stuff. What is this target? Does this do anything? This does. This is for tracking the player. This is for chasing. Okay, so we don't need that. Set destination is essentially just setting a position. Okay, so we don't need that either right now. So we don't need the path. This dot transform. No. Yes. Dot position. Yes. Okay. So what this warp is going to do is basically snap the player to the nav mesh. This might cause a hitch, but this is kind of an important step in order to get the character kind of locked on to the system, so that it's set up correctly. So we're just going to warp it to its current position, and hopefully that doesn't move it at all. Next up, we need to have some way of setting its position, and we need to update. I don't think the update is all doing specialized logic for like tracking and following the player. I don't think we actually need the update. The agent will handle all of that. So we just need this cutscene movement to set up that agent for us. And then we need to be able to do a public function call to set cutscene target. Nav target. And then we can agent.setDestination with the value. Okay. And that value needs to be a vector 3. Okay. So, okay. This is super straightforward. So essentially we're just going to say there's a script on the player that on start is going to try and warp the player to its current position. And then it has a function to set the agent's destination. By default, that shouldn't do anything. So if we just add this to the player in our cutscene scene, we should see nothing happen, which is perfect. And then we will later be able to, when we lock the player's movement, be able to call to this script and be able to manipulate it. I don't think we need to worry about toggling it on and off. This has no nav mesh. Okay, so does that mean that the enemies that we have in that other scene default to having a nav agent? It does. Okay, so we're going to copy this component and we're going to head on over to our cutscene and we're going to add that to the player as well. Hopefully that doesn't have any adverse effects. Okay. Now we hit run. Well, that's a problem. Popped our character out of the world. Now, is that because the nav on this particular map is broken? It is. Clear, bake. Oh, super broken. Okay, so that's unfortunate. I think that might be because there's no clear exit to the outside world. I think what we need to do is in our map, we need to get rid of the border edge. No, this is already going out to the outside world. This should have been handling fine. Whatever. Let's try just removing some stuff and see if that helps. It's going to make things look weird, but I feel like there's something wrong with our nav mesh generation, and I feel like it's something around the way that we generate our map. I kind of have a vague remembrance of how this works. I haven't actually done anything with the nav mesh in a while. Okay, nope, that didn't help. Interesting. So if we go back to our main scene, the one that we have that definitely has a working nav mesh, this nav mesh is kind of spliced around the actual walkways. If we clear and bake that, that clear and bake's fine. So what is it about our new map that fails? This should be the exact same settings for all of this stuff. Clear, bake. We did build all-in-one, I'm pretty sure. Generate all-in-one. Does it have its collision? It does have collision. That's a shame. So basically the whole movement system relies on this nav mesh working. So let's see, if we hit play, is the whole thing essentially a nav mesh right now? Did it error? It didn't error. So it might be that the entire area is navigable, which isn't what you want. You'd prefer there to be an actual walkway that they walk along. Because if the whole thing is navigable and we say, hey, walk to here, the character will just try and walk directly through the walls, which isn't what you want. Let's continue for now. I think there's a bigger problem here that's going to probably be a couple hours of me debugging to try and figure out why the nav mesh stuff is broken. Because honestly, it's been a couple months since I've played with it. So let's just assume that everything is fine. And let's see what happens if for our cutscene movement, if we write a new sequence step for moving the player. So we have set player control. What if we now have a... I think it's going to be like this. Almost identical to this set V camera follow. In terms of parameters, this is going to be a set cutscene movement. It's a weird name. It seems off to me, but I think it's technically what we're trying to make. So this thing is going to set the movement. So this gets here, here, and here. We rename this to entity to move to. And then we do the same thing here. Entity to, oh, shoot. Move to, not movement to. Okay. And then instead of trying to get a virtual camera machine, instead what we're going to do is on our current given objects, we're going to try and get the cutscene movement. And from there, we will call set nav target based on the transformed position of the object we say to move to. What are you mad about? I can't do error checking here. That's what it's mad about. Okay. So we're going to try and set a navigation target based off of an entity. And that should just work. God, these sequence steps are super quick to write. Possibly writing them in a not great way currently, but I'm okay with what we got going on. So set cutscene movement. And we want to, after the delay step, we want to try and move player 2, and for the time being, because I don't have another one set up, let's just move him to camera pan 1. Here, and then just to make sure that this is readable, we're going to add another delay step right after that, and we'll make that like 5 seconds. Okay, so we should have a ton of time to see him try and move. Okay, so does this work? No. Didn't even trigger? Why did the cutscene not even trigger? Did we delete the cutscene? What's happening? This is mimic intro. This is getting entity player. Checking the distance between them. Why did our triggering logic suddenly break? It's a player. Okay. That's not where I thought we were going. How did that go wrong? It's just... Please stand by. Here's a dragon.
Dragon! Color palette making is tricky. Does it look like it's coming at you a little bit more with the eyes and the face look moved?
Yeah, actually.
Excellent.
The eyebrows really help make him look like you're looking like he's looking to the right now.
Mm-hmm. It just needed a little guidance.
Cool. I figured out my problem. It looks like the character is getting moved to -0 or -2 on the z-axis, which is too far away from our trigger point, which is 0z. So the character has moved inward. So if we turn off 2D, whoa, yeah, the character's no longer on the same plane as everything else. And I assume that's because of our nav mesh snapping. Yes, this is at 2, so it needs to be at 0. Could that be the reason why it wasn't baking correctly? No, of course not. So trippy.
Oh, where's my invert? Control shift, yeah.
Weird. Where's the floor? This stuff is at 0. The grid is at 0. The nav is at 0, but it's off by like fairly crazy margin. Should it be at 4 instead? Okay, it's at 4. Clear and bake. Interesting. Clear and bake. It always wants to bake on this layer for some reason. which seems wrong. If we hit play, does it move? No, it's still on that layer. Is the player now on that layer at least? Yes, the player has moved slightly, but is close enough to cause the trigger. Okay. So, some real weirdness with nav mesh stuff. Not entirely sure what's going on there. Pretty upset about that. But technically that worked. Oh. Oh. I can't move. Or more accurately, I can't move away because the AI stuff is still running. So, alright. Is there like a clear destination? Destination. Okay, nav mesh agent questions, I guess. Go to Google. Okay. Looks like we want to do these two things in unison to stop it. So we need a we have this function now. Is there a way to tell when we've reached our destination? I think there is, because that's how the AI movement works. Remaining distance. Okay, cool. So, if we are... none of this chase logic. Can work on clarity of how close is close enough at a later point, but for now 0.25 is fine. So if we are within that range, we're gonna basically stop cutscene nav. And just for safety, so that we're not calling this more than we need to, we'll also make sure that agent.isStopped equals false. Actually, is there an agent dot? There's an update position as well. Let's also set that to false at the same time so that we won't try and navigate anywhere. And then we can use this value as the if update position equals true and we're close enough, then do this. And then when we try and set it, we can set it back to true as well here. So when we try and we'll say, hey, you're updating your position and here's the new position we want. And then if we're updating position and we're close enough to the spot, remaining distance is low enough to where we're trying to go, then we're going to say stop. We're going to stop updating our position and we're going to tell the agent to stop and to reset its path. Cool. And then we should be able to move again once the character reaches the location we told them to go to in the cutscene. Okay, we walk up. Camera moves over. We wait a couple seconds. then the character starts moving. The character reaches the position, and then the character can move again. Cool. Solving the problems. And now, next up, I don't love this 5-second delay. I don't think this is needed. Or maybe I don't need this 2-second delay. Let's remove that one. We do need to wait for the character to reach their position, though, before moving back, so I think this needs to be longer. Although we might be able to speed up the agent. I'm not sure about how fast he's currently moving, because it looks like he's currently moving quite slow. Interesting that the camera pans a little bit after that. That's technically to do with the camera offset nonsense, because we're switching between two different cameras. This is where the finesse of cutscenes are going to come in, because technically what that means is that we should switch cameras back slightly sooner. So maybe we do this. But we add a delay at the end so that you can't... Well, the delay isn't going to matter. You can move again when the cutscene's over, essentially. I don't know. I'm playing with values now. Now we're just tweaking numbers. Trying to get something that feels good. So, character moves. I'm gonna duplicate this guy just for a backup. But I think we might be able to remove the tracking stuff now. Because now it's not going back to where the character was, and we want to update the tracking to reflect that. Now the camera is basically where the character's going. Kind of. Yeah.
Yep. My dragon face. It's on the screen.
Yeah, he's kind of got a bit of a yeah.
I'm evil, see?
Okay. Yeah, so I could play with like, I think I could add a bit of like tracking offset in here, and I could kind of get that camera to be even more refined for that movement. But like, the point is the system works. I can tweak cutscene values for years, but it's just the fact is I think I have the tools now to play with stuff. Okay. Just for the sake of, if we do go in here, and I think if I'm visualizing this correctly, at this point, we could add a, what was the variable we were manipulating? The camera player? The camera player, what if we add a offset of 1? It just feels like it zooms down right now, which I'm not loving the zoom down. I think it's actually that's the problem. Problem at some point is that we need to set it back. But my point is that to articulate what the problem is that the camera moves to the right as the character's walking over, and I wish that the camera didn't move so far to the right at this stage right here. The character's moving this way. I don't want the camera to move as far to the right. And that was not perfect, but felt better to me. So this camera tracking stuff is going to be useful for finessing camera movements, essentially, as we're transitioning between cameras. So, and it could be that we could just change this to be slightly longer in terms of how long it delays before the camera starts moving. That might help as well. But we have a series of pieces and Lego blocks, essentially, that we can start assembling into like a series of cutscene moments that allow us to move the character and get the kind of effect that we want. I think the problem is actually that we want to go the other way. Yeah, the camera's moving down too much right now. So we want to go up, I think. This tracking stuff I'm having a hard time visualizing, and I'm the one actually editing and modifying it, so I'm sorry for that. Oh, it snapped a little bit at the end there. Okay, 2 was probably too much is the actual result. So let's try 1. I also feel like the 5.5 second watch as the character moves slowly over to place. Like this feels like a slower movement. Yeah, there's still a little bit of a weird shift going on there, but that's, again, closer. Neat. Neat. Why does the... I do want to say, though, that the fact that we have to add all of this tweakiness with, like, the tracking values and manipulating the seconds feels somewhat bad, and I feel like there might be a way to better hook into the camera system so that we don't have to add as much finesse to it, but I don't see a better way right now. But I think playing with camera settings themselves on, like, how these cameras are set up could be a better way in the long term. So we have a character moving into position. We have cameras tracking the character and tracking other things. The next steps, I think, would be dialogue. I think dialogue system is the next piece. So having it so that we have a step to, like, say, prompt the dialogue and then wait for the player to click through the dialogue before moving on to the next set of steps. Yeah. Yeah, that's probably right. Huh. How's Dragon feeling?
Very feminine.
On purpose or just kind of happened?
It just kind of happened. I don't know, I'll rough it up around the edges.
Are we winding down here?
I think I'm winding down.
Okay. Let's call this stream. We've been going for about 3 hours. Thank you to the folks who've been sticking around in stream. I see you lurking there. I got a little bit of the cutscene stuff. I mean, just to go over the recap for me, I got it so now we have a system where we can manipulate which camera is currently the priority camera. We can wait for the camera system to blend on that to the new priority. We can disable and re-enable the player's movement. We can manipulate and move the character's movement via the nav mesh system, which the nav mesh itself needs some tweaking, but I'll figure out what's gone wrong there. But we've got that all set up now, and we've got it so that we can also kind of tweak the camera movements as we're kind of progressing through these scenes. Next steps are probably going to be getting a dialogue system so that we can click a button, or we can have a step where dialogue appears so the character gets here and maybe says something, then maybe the camera pans over to reveal someone on the right, and then they say something, and yada yada back and forth. And so That's feeling pretty good. I'd like to clean up some of this camera movement stuff if we can find a way where I don't have to have as much fiddly numbers in order to get it to feel the way I want would be good.
Guys, say thank you for watching this stream.
And that's pretty much it for me, I think. And then we got more work in here too. There's tons of work to be done. There's always more work to do. And then over here on this stream, we've got these dudes.
They're so cool.
They are very cool, but I still think they remind me a little bit too much of the poop emoji. So we'll have to figure out some ways.
Is it the curl?
I think it might be the curl. I don't know. We're not fixing it this evening. Not on this stream anyways. But this is pretty cool. And I'm actually still really liking your dragon too. I think your dragon's pretty neat.
I wonder...
Are you going to fix it right now?
No, just real easy peasy, like... Oh, I can't do it to all of them. I'll just do it to this red boy. He'll be the lucky one. Whoosh.
No, that's worse.
He looks like a magician now.
I think that's worse.
Well, I can't please everybody.
And I can't unsee it. Okay. But for now, yeah, that's going to be it. We did some art things. We did some code things. Cutscenes are coming along. I'm feeling pretty good about progress.
Dragon.
And then dragon, yeah.
Scorpion Drago. What was the...
Did you lose the text?
No, the text is there. It's just buried under many, many layers.
Let me know if people got to the end here or if you're in the stream now.
Scorpion Lizard.
Let me know if you enjoyed this style of stream with the vision and vision, with the art stuff as well as the code stuff. I had fun. I hope you did too. For now, this is going to be Tolhi signing out. Later, guys.
If anybody has ideas for monsters, make a comment.
No, we don't know.
Oh, I like ideas.
Because then people will be like, you stole my monster idea for your video game that was amazing. Because it's going to be amazing. Just give it 10, 20 years.